Well, the time is just gone 13 minutes past 8 a.m. as we kick off this morning with news and views. And we are now taking reaction to President Cyril Ramaphosa's closing address at the 55th ANC National Conference in Nasrec. And we're going across now to be joined by Tahir Maipa of the Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa. Tahir, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As always, welcome and jazakallah for your time.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, Tyre, it's been an eventful 5 days at the ANC's conference, and I'm sure you have been following developments now. Before we get to the closing address and what President Cyril Ramaphosa had to say, just your take, your overall view on, or your observations on what played out at Nasrec.
Well, and yet, the ANC conferences have become a dull affairs in a sense that for a ruling party, the expectations obviously from most of us were high, especially with all the challenges that we are having in the country and the challenges that the ANC itself is having internally. One was expecting that this conference will deal with things that matters the most to South Africans. But what we saw there, it was another ANC get together, and they were dealing only with their issues without having to snap out of complacency and remember that they are a ruling party. Whatever that they do there, it's supposed to be a mirror image of what they expect to happen in the country. And we saw none of that. In fact, this was one of the worst conferences of the ANC that I've ever seen. In fact, I was saying to my friends and my cousin who was also contesting to be in the NEC that, I've wasted a couple of days watching this nonsense and nothing came out of it. And it's exactly that, just a bunch of nonsense. This conference, it was all about just elections of leadership and leadership battles within the ANC. And it had nothing to do with us as a country. As a country, we're still sitting in the dark. We're still facing economical hardships. Inflation is just skyrocketing. Food prices going high. The workers have got little to nothing in terms of salary increment. So the situation is dire for ordinary citizens of the country. And the ruling party failed to rise above and punch above their weight to demonstrate that they should be given another chance, which is something that I doubt that South Africans will do. Unfortunately, they missed an opportunity, and that opportunity is gone. We just have 7 people who've been elected, and they were not elected for us, they were elected for the ANC. And whether they will cut the standard expected of them by ordinary citizens of this country, it's something else. Our energy crisis in the country, our mineral resources part of our country is in a mess. And yet you still bring a person like Gwede Mantashe to come back to be the chairperson. This is how silly the ANC has become. And as far as I'm concerned, as a servant leader of the working class, I'm definitely sure that there's nothing that will come out of this. We are just going to have another 5 years of hardships. Hopefully, 2024 may bring better prospects.
Well, certainly, and also I think the fact that the NEC was not finalized at the conference, and we know that this has now been postponed to the 5th of January, tells us a lot because between elections, between the conferences, this is the highest decision-making body, and this is absolutely important. This is crucial, Tahir.
No, that is the whole point. I mean, there's few things that one would have expected they should be finalized by this particular conference. Also, that in itself is the actual leadership. The 80 men and women who are supposed to join the 7. It's very important because of those are the people who will ordinarily going to end up in parliament are the people who are going to end up being ministers in the cabinet of President Cyril Ramaphosa. So the delay on that, it brings about anxiety, and it's divisive for the ANC because of the hatches haven't been buried. Everybody's on their toes because of that's all that they care about, positions. That's what ANC is all about, because once you descend into a position, things open up for you in terms of your own personal gains. And this is all what it's all about. But it's important that this nation needs to know the caliber of people who are in that NEC. And for us to wait more days or weeks trying to figure out who's going in and who's going out, it's also problematic, not only for our economy, but also in terms of what the electorate, ordinary people like us, have to make a decision in terms of whether this thing is still worth it or not.
Yes. Now, one of the other issues, and I see President Cyril Ramaphosa, and we want to talk about, just reaction to his closing address, has been talking about the ANC has spoken, the branches has spoken, the people has spoken, but the whole question surrounding organizational renewal. Now, that seemed to be quite a prominent feature of the conference where they were trying to push that agenda. But again, looking at the top seven, looking at the people that have been are now surrounding the president, looking at also some of the nominations that have come through for the 80 positions that we speak of, just looking at organizational renewal, how possible is that going to be? I mean, how much is it actually going to change from the ANC that we've seen, just before the conference? And also at the same time, the credibility of the organization, how is this likely to impact it?
Well, if there's one thing that the ANC is good at, is rhetoric. And they like throwing around these terms, which in reality they mean nothing. The issue of renewal of the ANC, practically for all intents and purposes, is just to disband the whole thing and start it afresh. How do you renew without continuing with a fractured organization? Because if you look at what some of the things that have been said by these leaders who've been elected, is that we are going to still continue dealing with things like the Zondo Commission report, and we are going to deal with everybody that is been implicated. Who's been implicated? It's the very same people who were sitting in Nasrec deciding the future of this country. They are the ones who are implicated. So how do you then renew the organization by not creating a rift? Because those who are implicated are still going to push back. This fight is far from over. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves is that where do we stand as a country, as a people? And this is the decision that we need to start looking into. I've seen over the years a lot of business people, including Muslim businesses, have been funding the ANC for many years. Now, the question is that why would we continue funding an organization that has done so much harm to us as a people? And we as Muslims, we are even worse because we know that whatever wealth that we have, it's like it's amana. And it's our responsibility to know where this money is being used and for what. And we need to start saying to our Muslim brothers and other business men and women to say that stop funding these people. Use your money, fund NGOs, fund organizations that are really doing a lot for our people. Fund Sanza, fund Gift of the Givers, fund Awqaf, fund trade unions that are fighting corruption, that are really fighting corruption within the system. Give them the capacity to have the legal means to hold these people to account. But to throw our money into the lion's den of criminals and thieves, we are responsible to what is happening in this country because we are feeding this pig that is becoming bigger and bigger. We need to step back and say that, you know what, this is our country as well. We need to start doing things differently for the country, not for the party, because this party has never demonstrated that they care about the country. They care about their organization first and the factions within the organization. That comes first. And we are saying the country must come first. And we can do a lot if we pool our resources, we pool our energies, our expertise, our abilities to take this country forward. We must be the ones who create jobs. We must be the one who sustain those jobs. Let's forget about these people. The only time that we will have to deal with them and many other political parties is in 2024, where we must decide what to do with them. But in between, let's pool our resources and keep our money away from these criminals.
Yes, and just looking at your position, obviously looking at public service and commercial union, and one of the issues that we obviously heard of, and some of the delegates at the conference endorsed, were plans to do away with the Department of Public Enterprises in favor of placing these SOEs in line departments. Now, whether that is going to happen or not, we're not too sure. But this is absolutely important, considering the SOEs, the damage with cadre appointments, and also the billions that the SOEs have actually lost, and the harm, the disastrous impact of these SOEs on the country as a whole.
Exactly. You see, the problem that we are having is that there's no plan in terms of how to resolve these SOEs problems, and there's madness around that, and that madness is the fact that these are cash cows for the comrades. This is where the money is channeled for purposes of corruption and funding these kinds of activities for people to be elected and all that. They wouldn't want to get those SOEs in an area where they are going to be independent of the state so that they can fulfill their mandate. So there's two things that are happening that I've observed. There's people who obviously want to continue with the current system where these state-owned companies are going to be cash cows. And there are those who are saying that, you know what, because of these state-owned companies are not performing, not because they're incapable of performing. They are not performing because at the helm of those institutions are people who are incompetent, people who are morons, who don't know what they are doing. So what should we do? Let us privatize these institutions. Now, when you privatize, you are going to start selling these companies to your friends and your close associates. So whichever way you look at it, it's a loss for ordinary people, like me and you. So what we need to start doing, we need to look at whether the current structure of government, does it work? And our position, it has always been, there's no need for provincial government. We only need national government and local government. This middle layer is just a waste of money and duplication. The services to our people happens at local government. That's where most of the money must be thrown into, and then appointments of fit to purpose people must happen. We need proper engineers, we need proper managers, CEOs and municipal managers who are working. We need artisans who are supposed to be feeding into those particular institutions. And the national government, it should be a policy making kind of a governance area where people who are supposed to be doing the actual work will be held accountable. Once you have killed that, you will see a situation where we'll have more service delivery because of the checks and balances are easier. But where there's so many duplications, everybody has an opportunity to blame the other guy that, no, this is not my responsibility in terms of section what. It belongs to a provincial government. No, this is not my responsibility, it's national government. We need to then destroy. Once we streamline that, and as a union, people will say, yeah, but once what you are saying is that what's going to happen to workers who are working in the provincial government? Nothing will happen to those workers because of those workers must be placed where it matters the most. They need to be then transferred both to local government and national government. In fact, the public service has shrunk so much so over the a couple of years that the state is incapable of fulfilling its particular mandate. So once we know where we stand in terms of those areas, you'll see better synergy in terms of service delivery. And that's what we want. We are not a union that just wants members. We want a union that serves this nation. It's also our responsibility. We don't want our members to be sitting on their desk for months in, months out, simply because of they are employed. We want our members to work, to render services to our people. We cannot have a situation where people are earning salaries and they're doing nothing. That's not what we want, and that is not what we are going to promote as a trade union. We want a situation where we earn our salaries, not steal them.
Well, Tahir, Jazakallah, there's just so much more we can actually unpack, but unfortunately, time constraints. But as always, we do appreciate you taking time out and talking to us. We wish you all the best, inshallah, and please stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Tahir Maipa joining us, the Public Service and Commercial Union of South Africa. We're going to go for a break. We come back, we'll be joined by Africa Muslims Agencies, and they're out in Lebanon. We're talking about the Amman School of Excellence.